Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior, and welcome to another God of War video. Today, we're going to be having a little bit of fun and crafting together a bit of a theory video, one that discusses the possibility of us meeting the other Valkyries within the God of War universe. Because despite what the games have presented us with, the world of Norse mythology has a plethora of different and unique Valkyries, ones that we are yet to hear of or even see. So today, we will be talking about whether or not such a thing is possible, and if so, how exactly could they fit into the world of God of War? Because for the most part, from what we do know, nearly all of the Valkyries were driven insane. So we will be diving into that, and how exactly does this all tie into Ragnarok? Because a lot has happened to the Valkyries since Odin's spiral into madness. But before we go down that avenue of gods, monsters and beasts, as always everyone, I would super appreciate it if we could first get this video to about 500 likes. It's an amazing way of not just helping out this video, but supporting this channel out as a whole. It really does go a very long way. And hey, if you like what we do here and want to see more, please don't forget to subscribe and tick that bell. But without any further ado, let's begin, shall we? Now, just to give you all more context regarding the state of the Valkyries, let's first lightly touch on Freya, the downfall of the Valkyries, and of course, their salvation in death, coming in the form of Kratos and Atreus. So, first things first, what was the inciting incident that led to the destruction of the Valkyries? Well, this comes in the form of Odin. Having learnt about the ancient apocalyptic prophecy, Ragnarok, the Allfather would be driven insane from his infatuations of the end days, even going so far as to attack the Jotunheims of Midgard, and then later on, turning his sights against the ones he called family. And this included his at the time wife, Freya, who was the queen of the Valkyries. Once she was exiled from Asgard, the bitter Allfather turned his sights on the rest of the Valkyries. Whilst he may have appointed Sigrun as the new queen, in time, he believed that they were no longer valuable to his cause, and thus purposely gave them physical mortal bodies, something that Valkyries were not supposed to have. And so by entering this form, each of the Valkyries would slowly go insane. Because of this, Sigrun was forced to lock away her sisters, sealing them in vaults deep beneath the surface of multiple realms. The Valkyries would then be lost to time, simply becoming a legend as the dead overflowed the realms. With no guardians, none truly passed over into the afterlife. But all of this would change in time, as the Valkyries would be discovered by the likes of Kratos and Atreus. Having discovered their fate with Mimir, they set out to free them of their imprisoned bodies, killing them physically so they could return back to their astral forms. So once done, and with Sigrun freed, the order of life and death was restored. But what ultimately happens now? As I doubt Odin has much use for them upon their return to Valhalla. Well, let's talk about it a bit in depth here and theorize what is going on, because currently we do know one Valkyrie that will be surfacing in Ragnarok, Freya, as after being robbed of her child, she seeks vengeance against Kratos, wishing to obtain her lost warrior spirit, as well as her Valkyrie wings. Which then begs the question now of, what about the rest? Well, let's talk about the current state of Asgard coming into Ragnarok. Now officially, nothing has been revealed through its promotional material, but what we can assume is that the death of Balder not only affects Freya, but also Odin in a huge way, because in the prophecy of Ragnarok, Balder's demise is the first sign of the coming apocalypse. And what is an interesting twist on this tale is that this supposed fate was something that wasn't supposed to happen until 100 years later. At least according to Mimir. So with the Allfather in a panic state, I could imagine he would want to rally as many forces as possible, including the likes of the Valkyries, who we have seen from the Ragnarok trailer have cleaned up the mess that Odin made, so that means that there won't be any Hellwalkers aimlessly wandering around. What of Asgard? Well, I doubt the Valkyries would be very happy to work with Odin once again, especially seeing as he is the one responsible for driving them insane and incarcerating them. And whilst yes, it is their responsibility to guide the souls of the dead to both Helheim and Valhalla, they would be feeding Odin with the spirits of soldiers for the Day of Reckoning. But what makes this already quite interesting is that I believe we already see those enemy types in the God of War Ragnarok trailer, clearly indicating that something has happened here. So I definitely think that whilst it is possible that the Valkyries are serving him once more, I think it's more in line for Odin's ruthless nature and character that he starts over. This is where the influence of Norse mythology comes into play. Because although the God of War series has established 9 Valkyries, 10 if you want to lump in Freya, in Norse mythology, there is actually about 23 different unique Valkyries, which means that we have barely scraped the surface when it's come to touching the Valkyries. And there are a few ways one can obtain this mantle, as we can see. The 9 that we meet in game were beings forged into reality by the sheer will of Odin, so he can create them at any point in time. But Odin has also shown that he can also bestow someone with the wings of a Valkyrie. So with that in mind, I do think that is what we can see here, as the idea itself does derive from Norse mythology, with Odin bestowing shield maidens and loyal followers of his will with the wings of a Valkyrie. And this is us not even touching on the Wild Hunt counterpart of the Valkyries. For those of you who don't know, in the current modern age, we typically associate the Wild Hunt with the Witcher series, as it was those games that popularized them. There are in fact many depictions in Europe of the Wild Hunt being led by Odin across the night sky, which really is just another interpretation of how some cultures perceived the Valkyries. If Odin was to breathe new life into this order, I could most certainly see him rebranding the Valkyries to become the Wild Hunt. And as we know, with the Allfather in pursuit of both Kratos and Atreus, it would make the idea of this seem that much more possible. Now, whilst a defiant Valkyrie may sound like a bit of a strange idea, seeing as they are created by Odin, this is actually something that does happen in legend. In fact, some of you may actually be familiar with her name, Brynhilda. Brynhilda is one of the most infamous Valkyries of legend, as historically, she is the only Valkyrie to date that directly defied the will of Odin. What did she do, however, is sadly never clearly written in stone, but when she stood up against the Allfather, Brynhilda would be stripped of her Valkyrie wings, as well as her abilities, being cast back into the world of man and trapped on a mountain surrounded by fire in a coma. Totally not overkill at all, Odin. Brynhilda would be in an eternal slumber unless she received a kiss from a brave warrior, and this came in the form of Sigurd, or as some of you may know him, as Siegfried, the Dragon Slayer. So the tale of Brynhilda does spill and lap over into Germanic tales. With that being said, Odin's exile of Brynhilda is what leads to her own spiraling downfall, as not long after she had awakened, she would fall into despair and later take her own life. And probably from what you can tell, the game's interpretation of Freya also draws lines of similarity to that of Brynhilda, with both of them having defied the Allfather, both of them being cast out, and finally both of them being stripped of their Valkyrie wings. The tragic tale of Brynhilda could very well have been the template of which Freya could have been based off when they developed the story for the 2018 game. So now, Do I think it's possible that we will see more Valkyries, or even new ones in the next game? Well, the answer should be quite obvious, but it's yes. Santa Monica has pulled a lot of interesting ideas from Norse mythology, and like I said, we've only scratched the surface of the mythology behind the Valkyries. There's a lot that goes on there, and with the ever-growing universe, and how it ties into different worlds, lands, pantheons, and cultures, I think it is very much so possible that we could meet the other Valkyries, maybe even Brynhilde herself, as she could be seen as a hero that was in direct conflict with the Allfather. So it still lines up with Norse mythology, but with a twist that aligns with God of War's interpretation of Norse mythology. I'm just intrigued to see what they will do with the material they have, as it is quite flexible to thread and weave this game into something unique to its source material. Like, will we see the Valkyries of old, or will they become the prophesized wild hunt of the night? We will simply just have to wait and see, as we are yet to get more news regarding the status of Ragnarok. So, on that note, this has been it for me. I hope you have enjoyed this video and learnt more by doing so. There's still plenty more God of War content on the way, including a new series where I will be exploring the other pantheons that have been mentioned in the God of War universe. We will be talking about those worlds and the gods that do inhabit them. And finally, how does Kratos and Atreus fit into the fold of those worlds? Could make for a very interesting video discussing the future and the direction that the series may be going in after Ragnarok. But for now, that's been a wrap. So as always everyone, stay strong, stay well, and keep on fighting as Ragnarok comes for us all. Take care everyone, I'll see you soon.